Hello, I'm Michael. I want to produce a video series for lighting designers. I want to share with you some of my experience. And in this first video, I want to give you 3 hints on how to turn your good lighting design into a successful contract. I want to give you 3 hints how to make your presentation successful, maybe even invulnerable. Well, I've been working as an interior and lighting designer for more than 20 years now. Much of that time I devoted to my work with the DIAL, the German Institute for the Application of Light. So you probably know me from my works there, and in the future I might produce more videos for Dialux Evo as well. In that time I trained hundreds of people from lighting design companies, from manufacturers from all around the globe. And I participated in several competitive situations, and my learnings from that I want to share with you now. So first of all, I think very often it's not the nicest design that wins, but it's the one which is presented in the best way. It's explained very well, and you could elucidate your project perfectly. So what is the first hint? Well, we all grew up in families, didn't we? Probably you have sisters or brothers yourself, or you have children of your own, and you are aware of one situation when the children are complaining about each other, when they have their difficulties with each other, and the one that is arriving at his mother or her mother or father first has always a little bit of an advantage. Has the advantage because the second child arriving has to readjust the saying of the first child. So it's kind of setting up a standard. What is true in this family situation is also true for presentation in a business context. So this would be my very first advice. Be the first and set the standard. From my professional work, I can give you another example. I remember giving a 2-day training on lighting design. It was much theory and physics in there, which is not always the case. And I remember on the very first day, at the end of that day, I was a little bit tired. And while writing on the flip chart, I made a calculation error. Then we all left the building. We thought everything was done for the day. When restarting the next day, it was rather difficult to iron out the obvious error, because people tend to believe what they once have settled in their mind. They do not like to change their mindset. So things once believed are difficult to change. Therefore, like I said before, be the first, set the standard. Hint number 2. Another one which at first sight seems very obvious. Listen carefully to your client. Well, it might even be unnecessary to say this, but when a client says something, kind of repeat it. Psychologists call this a mirroring, but that's not the point in our case. When you're presenting a project, you better do not say, well, I thought you would like this, or I took your words as an inspiration for. It's very vague, you notice it, and it's all based on the assumption that your client has the same taste as you have. That's quite a risky assumption. Instead, you could say, you requested this as a quality or feature for the project, and as a consequence, we must do this or that. So, as the German Chancellor Angela Merkel said, alternativlos, alternativeless, lacking of alternative, that would be a way to argue positively for your project. If your client does not suffer of spontaneous obliviousness, he will remember what he or she said. And as before, he or she will not like to change your mind and stand to her word. In a consequence, he will like what you say, because you say it's a consequence. Lighting design is not purely a matter of art. It's also very much a matter of an engineering science. Therefore, it would be justified to talk about a consequence in the design process, and if this, then that consequence. This takes me to step 3. We're almost there. Talk about consequences and explain them to your client. I know many cases when projects are simply shown to the client without much explanation. But the importance of that became very clear to me in a case where I had a large residence to be made and the client was recommended to me, or the other way around, I was recommended to the client. I was there for the first time, listened to the needs. Then I came back about 2 weeks later to present my design. And we started at the ground floor, in the garage, where there was not much to see, but a little. And on that moment, we have started just 5 minutes ago, the phone rang, not mine, but of my client, and I heard that lady saying, "Yes, you made several projects for me, several lighting designs. But what you always did was you were showing fixtures to me. Nice fixtures, yes. But now I have someone here who is explaining to me how the light should be, how the lighting design should be, how the light should be." So we're talking about light, not about fixtures. He's a lighting designer, not a fixture designer. So he's understanding my needs and he's responding to my needs. He's responding to the needs of the architecture of the project. And thank you for all the work that you've done for me, sir, but I won't need that work anymore. Can you imagine the grin on my face that day? It was a beautiful day. I want you to have these beautiful days as well. So it's all about how to present and how to explain things. If this, then that. Design by consequence. Consequence after making a proper analysis of the project, making the correct assumptions, having good knowledge about the project and the client's needs, putting these things together, then present it. And then you can be quite sure you'll be successful. So let me collect together all 3 hints. First, try to be the first and set the standards. That's the most important part of it. Set the standards. Second thing, pick up the words of your client. Not by the wording, but try to understand him and implement that in your presentation. Third is explain the concept by consequences. And in the next video, we shall talk about how to do lighting design by consequences. What does that mean? I will explain it within 1 or 2 video sets the next weeks. Now, I'm really looking forward to receive your feedback, your questions. I really like to respond to those. Thank you for listening. I'm Michael.